Welcome to One-on-One with Mitch Lafon, and joining me on this episode, former Yes frontman Jon Anderson, talking about his new project, Anderson-Stolt, and their new album, Invention of Knowledge. Also, he's hitting the road with Rick Wakeman and Trevor Rabin, an evening of Yes music and more under the brand ARW, so we talk about that too. And on the second part of the episode, we speak with vocalist Phil Campbell of the band The Temperance Movement. Their new album is The White Bear, or simply White Bear. Before you check all of that out, please do check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON, and on Facebook, One-on-One Mitch Lafon. If you like what we're doing here and you'd like to support the podcast, I do have a direct PayPal address. It is paypal.me/Mitch Lafon, MITCH. And with that, here is the one, the only, Jon Anderson.
We are speaking with Jon Anderson. The new album is Invention of Knowledge. Pleasure to speak with you, Jon.
Excellent. Nice to speak with you, too, over the phone. Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. So, first of all, I'll just say it's a great thrill to speak with you because your name and the music you've been associated with has been a soundtrack for my life. So thank you for that. Let me start off with the obvious question before we talk about the album. You've had some health issues over the years. How are you doing these days?
I'm doing fine. I think most people go through tough times health-wise. I think that's normal in life. I just happen to be a busy guy, and I was out of commission for a year and a half, and now that's about 7 years ago. Anyway, I haven't stopped since, and I'm actually feeling much better than I was before because I was able to have a couple of operations. Last one I had was sinus operation, which really helped so much. And it wasn't through cocaine. I never took cocaine, but I always had a tough time with my sinuses from my childhood, probably the rainy weather of Lancashire, England. I don't know. I used to deliver milk when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. So you never know where it comes from. But I'm very healthy now.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and I know what you mean. I've had 2 heart surgeries in the last 5 years, and yeah, it'll get to you. So let's talk Invention of Knowledge. You teamed up with Anderson-Stolt. Talk to me about making new music because it's been a while since you've had some live albums come out, but this is sort of the first collection of new songs in a couple of years. Talk to me about the process and wanting to make new music.
Well, making music is everything for me. I'm actually in the studio this morning singing a new project, which I actually did a project 25 years ago, and the tapes have been in my studio ever since, never got finished. And this guy got hold of them, and he wants to reproduce them, and he's doing it out of Orlando. He has a studio there. And so I'm actually singing music that I actually wrote 25 years ago. So it's an endless procession of ideas that I'm very fortunate to be able to get. I think it all started working through the Internet. The Internet is a gold mine of energy on many levels, and I was able to contact many musicians around the world, and I work with them all the time. I'm actually singing in Chinese yesterday, trying to learn how to sing in Chinese and sound pretty cool. So working with Vanya was a beautiful way of expressing what I felt about music these days. I've always believed in long-form music as being an adventure and a musical journey, and it's something that I do all the time. I listen to music that isn't basically commercial music. I listen to symphonies, especially Sibelius. Gene Sibelius, one of the great composers of all time, and an incredible orchestrator, just unbelievable. And that's the kind of things that pushes me along to do long-form work. So getting together with Ronya was a beautiful moment because he had a band called Flower Kings in the 80s that were kind of an offshoot of Yes. They were very into Yes music, so he was excited to work together, and the finished product is a beautiful piece, and it is a symphonic musical rock and roll extravaganza. Ta-da!
Yeah, I agree. Now, is this sort of a one-off, one and done, or is this a collaboration that you would like to see make a second, third, fourth album down the road?
Yeah, we've already started talking about the next one, okay. And it's an ongoing situation. I think the more people enjoy the music, the more chance we'll have of performing it next year, next summer maybe. And then probably the beginning of 2018, we'll have a new album ready. And that'll sort of push the idea of Anderson-Stolt along nicely. It's like with Jean-Luc Ponty. I'm still working with him. We've been writing some ideas for next year, and he's actually working on this project that I'm doing now, this music that I wrote 25 years ago. And he's a brilliant man to work with. So I'm in constant flow. It's a lovely time in my life.
Let me quickly ask you about that music from 25 years ago. Were these just compositions that you had ready to go, or were these sort of demos that have been sitting in a vault and now you're dusting them off and fixing them up and going to release them?
No, they were basically a well-put-together album idea. I've got actually Chris Squire and Alan White play on it, of all people. God bless Chris Squire.
Right.
And it's really a collection of songs I wrote with a good friend of mine, Brian Chatton, who played keyboards for B.B. King for many years. And I actually started working with Brian in 1965, would you believe?
Wow.
He was in my first band, so we were mates then, and we're still great mates. And it's just a question of finishing the project now. This producer got in touch with me, and he heard about the music, and he actually heard a cassette of some of the mixes, and he thought he'd like to finish it off for me. And I said, okay, we can do this.
That sounds great. Now, you have Alan and Chris, God rest his soul, on them. Was that a Yes album in the making, or is this?
No.
Okay.
It's one of those things. It was called Us Lot, which means a lot of us. And the idea was to get a couple of the guys from the Beach Boys to sing on it, Wayne Shorter to play on it, Chris and Alan to play on it, get a bunch of people just to play on this music that me and Brian wrote with a friend of ours, Keith, up in Big Bear. I was up in Big Bear for 6 months trying to change my life, which I did.
Right. Now, you mentioned Chris, and we all know that he's passed away. You were with him from the very beginning. What did he mean to you? What was Chris?
It's hard to explain in words so much. Right. I mean, the music explains it all, that we were so connected. He was the bass energy to my high vocal. And if you listen to his bass work, it's just remarkably musical. It's not just trundling along bass playing. It is very musical. His vocals are incredible, and I miss him dearly. I remember when he got really sick, I got in touch and we talked on the internet. Actually, it was easier to do the internet because he really couldn't talk. He was very sick. So we'd send messages to each other. And basically I said, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing but for you, Chris. So get well and be good, and I'm thinking of you. And that's a connection you can never, ever forget in life. Somebody who, no matter what happened, because we got pushed around by management and record companies, and they tried to break up our friendship, which they did a couple of times. And whichever way we looked at it, I said, Chris, you're my brother. We're musical brothers, and I love you very much, and God bless you and everything like that. And then he passed away.
Did his illness and passing away lead to any kind of rapprochement with the other members of Yes? Because, you were unceremoniously excused. Did this sort of...
Not really, no. To be honest, Steve and has been sort of, separated from the true understanding of what I do and what Yes is to me. He sort of separated from that years ago, and we've never really connected ever since. It's a sad thing to say, but, I love the guy. Eventually we'll get back together, probably at the Hall of Fame when we get in there in 10 years' time, and we'll forgive each other for whatever we've been upset about,
Are you disappointed that it didn't lead to at least a phone call that said, hey, our good friend is going through some difficult times, or was it sort of like, I'm expecting...
Well, they're not like that.
Right.
Everybody's busy getting on with life, and I remember when I was sick, there was only Alan who got back to me at all about how I was, and that was disappointing because people you think are very close friends, and people said years ago, you always find out who your friends are when you're sick.
Yeah. Oh, I know that.
It's an old saying.
Yep, I know.
So, life is life. We get on with next projects, and I'm working with Rick Wakeman and Trevor now, and that's the next couple of years of my life.
Yeah. So if I may, let me ask you about ARW. I want to say ARM, but it's not ARM. It's Anderson Rabin Rick Wakeman. Because you've done this album with Roin-Stolt.
Yeah.
Will there be new music with ARW?
Yeah, we've written some work, and we've got quite a considerable amount of song ideas, but we just sort of backed ourselves up against the wall not to do any finishing of the album because we have a tour, and we have to really concentrate on making sure the music is really good. And it's going to be a classic tour of Yes music, plus some really interesting new ideas that we have, and little vignettes of songs that I've written with Trevor that I think will probably find themselves in the show. But the main thing is to redesign and 21st century Yes. I'm still in Yes emotionally, and I know Rick is and Trevor. We have this lineage between us that we are connected to Yes, and we're going to go out there and perform music that I wrote and Trevor wrote and Rick wrote for Yes, because Yes is not a band of people, but Yes is an idea.
Right. So let me ask you then, what compels you to write new music? Because listen, you are going to do this tour, and you can throw your name on the marquee, and people are going to show up. So why bother writing, recording, getting a distributor? Why not just go, hey, let's do this for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Let's go play the hits. I mean,
yeah, that would honestly, that would do my head in.
Okay.
I've seen it happen to other bands, where they just go out and they just perform, and I don't know. Some people like doing that. I just don't like doing that. I'm definitely a progressive musician. I have a ton of dreams to fulfill musically, and that's what I'm doing. And I know that, of course, I could make a living going out and get a band of musicians and go out as Yes, or a version of Yes, you know what I'm saying? But that's not what we're doing. We're musicians that want to play together and make music together and have fun and put on a great show in true ARW manner.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's all.
I certainly hope that it comes to Canada. Now, you did mention the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Why do you think they've been so reticent in not only letting Yes in, but progressive bands in general? Why have they not embraced the genre?
That's a tough question in a way. It's like it never bothered me, the whole, I went to the Hall of Fame when it was created. I've visited there a couple of more times. I actually performed there 3 years ago at one of their storytelling shows, because I was doing a show in Cleveland, and they asked me would I go to the Hall of Fame and do a storytelling lunchtime thing, and I said, yeah. And they showed me around the people that run the place, and they're just fantastic people. And the place is amazing, and it takes me through my whole history of my life, and from the 50s, through right to now. And there was a corner of, I think it was second floor, there was a corner that was empty, and the guy pointed over and said, that's for Yes, when it happens. And I said, that's the truth. It'll happen when it happens. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, well, let's hope it happens at some point. Now, I do see we're running out of time. If I may, if we can go back to the album 90125 that came out in '83, that was your returning to the band after a brief hiatus. Talk to me a little bit about that album and how it became so huge, because Yes really started hitting the mainstream at that point.
Well, we had a hit record in the 70s, or roundabout, and then a couple of minor hit records. And the record companies got very frustrated with us simply because they wanted to make more money. And the more they asked for a hit record, the more I would try to do longer form pieces of music like Close to the Edge or Gates of Delirium, Topographic, Awaken, which is a beautiful work. You're talking about music instead of making money. So the whole frustration that was the end of the 70s was me leaving the band along with Rick, because the record company had no idea what Yes music was. So when I came back to London about 2 years later, I met up with Chris, who then played me this music. And I'd been listening then at that time to an album called Duck Rock by the guy who actually managed Sex Pistols. I can't remember his name now, which was produced by Trevor Horn. So I was very into Trevor Horn's production ideas. And then Chris played me this album, and I went, oh my gosh, this is so fresh, and this is so new, and this is something I can work with. I can sing with this, and that's what inspired me to want to be in the band, because all the tracks were virtually finished, and some of the songs just didn't have a big chorus or whatever. There wasn't really any verses for Owner. Owner of a Lonely Heart was always a hit-sounding record. The chorus was a hit sound, and the record company were going to make sure it got played on the radio, so I was involved for 3 weeks, singing the verses for Owner, writing the chorus for Hearts, and singing on this and singing on that song and developing this song. I had the best time in the world because the music was already created. And that's the story of the 80s for me, that everything was already there, and I just enjoyed it and had the best 10 years. It was fantastic. In fact, we started the Yes Tour, 90125, and within about 2 weeks, we got these couple of guys to come and do some film footage of the band. And so I decided to drive with them in their car to Boston for the next show. And we're going through a small town, and there was a cinema on this road, and it said Spinal Tap this afternoon, matinee. And I said, what's Spinal Tap? And one of them said, oh, man, it's all about rock and roll. It's about, bands like Yes, and that kind of thing. So I went to see it. I've never laughed as much in my life.
It's a great movie.
I had the best time. Anyway, we got to the gig, and I told the guys, you got to see Spinal Tap. It's so us, it's so silly. Anyway, the film guys were straight out of film school, and the guy with the camera was Steve Soderbergh.
Yeah, good old Steve. It's a great movie, that one.
Spinal Tap is amazing.
I know, but it really describes pretty much every band.
Every band
in the
possible.
80s. Yeah.
Every band. And so I just loved being on the road in the 80s, and the music was fun. It wasn't where I wanted to go, but I just enjoyed it for the time. I just knew eventually I'd get back to working with what I understand is Yes, and that's why years later, about 10 years later, I was here in San Luis Obispo with Chris and Steve and Alan and Rick, and we did Keys to Ascension.
Yeah. Well, where do you want to be musically right now? Because you have mentioned, that if there's a Hall of Fame induction, you want to do Yes, and you're doing the stuff with Stolt, and do you want to get all the guys back together? I mean, do you want to get Trevor and Rick and Steve and just go out one last time? It's sort of like on the Union tour.
Probably. I think if, like anything, it's all big business when that happens. It's got very little to do with anything but let's make more money, get everybody together. Come on, guys, get on the road. And if that happens, I'll just see how I feel at that time. And I think that Trevor and Rick and myself are very interested in what we're going to do. This is more important than anything at the moment, ARW. And we've got to prove to ourselves that we can extend our musical energy to all the people that love Yes and all the new fans that will come along.
But I'm also thinking, apart from the money, as we all get older, Isn't there a point where you just want closure on everything and say, come on, guys, let's just, even if it's one show, let's just put a bow on this package?
I'll give you a call if it happens.
I certainly hope it does. In terms of Anderson-Stolt, is there going to be some tour dates as well?
No, we're just going to do a concert next year somehow of the album at the right place at the right time. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be, but we do want to do it. We might do a pay-per-view sort of thing. There's a couple of good companies called Stage It, and there's another one where you can actually do a show and it can be projected on the internet around the world. And that kind of thing would be fun to do.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic. Now,
in 3D surround sound.
Yeah, that would
full choir and an orchestra.
Well, why not? I mean, that Alice Cooper did sort of a 4D kind of presentation, like a holographic thing. We could go down that route. That would be
that'd be wild.
That would be wild. Absolute pleasure talking to you. I know we've run out of time. In fact, we've gone way over.
Don't worry about it. We're fine.
Oh, good, because there's so. What may I ask you about the Union time coming back for that tour and album?
Well, it's all very, very complicated at that time. I was just finishing ABWH, which I loved very much. And then management and record companies get involved, and it all becomes business again. And a couple of the guys in ABWH wanted to do, they wanted to do bigger things or whatever. I don't care. But I just got on with life and just said, okay, sometimes I stopped trying to be Napoleon. Sometimes right. I'll just be one of the chefs. No, I'll be one of the Indians. Not a chief.
Not a chief, just one of the. And let me just get back to the health for a second, because like I said, I've had those heart conditions, so I know.
Yeah.
Have you changed your? How can I put this? Are you on some kind of like physical fitness plan? Have you changed your diet habits? Have you?
Everything.
Okay.
And all of the above. All of the above. Where are you? Are you in Canada?
Yes, I'm in Montreal.
Montreal, love Montreal. Anderson Ponte did a great show there a while ago. And Quebec, we had the best time. It was our last show. We actually made a film of Montreal and Quebec. I've just heard that the sound of the recording was very good. So we might even have a movie of that show. You never know. For next year sometime.
Well, in fact, do you notice that Montreal and Quebec and Canada in general has always been a good market for progressive music?
I know why.
Why?
Because they're smart.
There you go. Jon, an absolute pleasure.
Okay, I wish you well, man.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with Jon Anderson, former frontman of the band, yes, ARW. Anderson Rabin Wakeman is the new project, touring all through the summer, and there you go. Let's move over to Phil Campbell of the band Temperance Movement. The new album is White Bear. We talk about that and all kinds of other crazy stuff. Here is the one, the only, Phil Campbell. We are speaking with Phil Campbell of the Temperance Movement. The new album is White Bear. Good day, Phil.
Hey, how you doing, Mitch? It is good to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been listening to the album for quite a while now. It only comes out in North America tomorrow, but it's fantastic. It's sort of like this dirty old rock and roll, meat and potatoes, right?
Sure, man. I mean, that's kind of what we've been doing is trying to performance rock and roll, unaffected with production, and you need to come and see the band play live because we're into performance and entertainment and that kind of thing,
Yeah. So you were recently in Canada and in Montreal with Monster Truck, another great band that has sort of the same energy. Talk to me a little bit about that tour and how that was for you.
Yeah, those gigs across Canada were brilliant. We had a great audience to play in front of. Monster Truck Truck's crowd are great people. Monster Truck themselves, they're a bit heavier than we are, I think. They come more from the sort of Soundgarden, Alice in Chains / AC/DC, sort of Deep Purple, sort of. They blend those heavier bands from the 70s and those grunge bands from the 90s together. We have more of a sort of roots approach. We grew up with Smashing Pumpkins and, Pearl Jam and Nirvana and everything from the 90s. But we look to the sort of late 60s blues explosion bands, British bands, Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac, John Mayall, Eric Clapton, Cream, the Stones, the Faces. That's we're a bit more sort of what we would call roots. But it was a good blend for energy anyway.
So, talk to me now a little bit about getting this band together. All of you had been doing these other gigs. You had been playing for other musicians.
Yeah. I mean, all of us had a good time in the music business. We'd done some different things. We played for some big acts, each of us. I think it was, London is the connector. I've come from Glasgow in Scotland, but I lived for much of my life, about 15 years in London. It's where just before I left there, and I now live in Glasgow again, but before I left London, I met Luke Matashnik, who was quite keen to start a band that was influenced by our love of rock and roll music, and the Black Crowes being one of those bands. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that, but we didn't get it together for another couple of years. We started off with three of us, two guitar players, me and Paul and Luke, and then we found Nick, who'd worked in the music business for years as well, and Damon. And I think all of us were just a bit jaded with what we were doing, and we still had that 16-year-old kid inside us that just wanted to do something that meant something to us, having been a little bit, just chasing the money for a long time. And so we all took a chance and got together and started this group, and everybody just put their sort of cards on the table, and we've been, it was a chance to take, but we were okay, and we sort of managed to sort of stage by stage get a lot of lucky breaks, like from our first gig at the Albert Hall in front of Alice Cooper and Brian May and Jeremy Irons and a whole host of famous rock and roll people. That was like one of our first gigs, and then we toured and we were selling out the Borderline, and then we were on tour in Europe, and then we were playing with the Rolling Stones, and then we got a lot of really good breaks for, I think, in return for taking the chance of doing it.
Yeah, so explain to me, because, with those musicians, you got to see the business, you got to see how difficult it was to get gigs and to get record deals. What was the learning curve for you in that? How did you sort of take from those bands and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it for our own thing?
No, well, I mean, all I've got is my own experience. I was trying to be a solo singer, songwriter type of person, and there was just it's too crowded a sort of place to do that. There was lots and lots and lots of successful artists, and I genuinely thought that that's what I was supposed to do. But my journey was basically putting down the guitar and stop worrying too much about the whole production of it, and just focusing on my voice. My trip with the Temperance Movement has been learning how to become a member of a band, and I always have wanted to. Really, that's what's been in my heart. Not, I've broken up bands, I've gone solo, kept going solo, but in my heart, it's I want to be like Chris Robinson in the Black Crowes, and I want to be part of a band, although I don't want to break up with the band like he did. But it's one of the main influences on me was this guy. But I hope our band will stay together. But
maybe not after this interview. Now that you've announced you want to go solo. No, I'm just kidding. But
no. I wasn't saying that there.
No, I know.
I stopped wanting to be solo when I joined the Temperance Movement, and I was able to see and find out what it was that I was really good at, which was singing, and kind of sometimes conducting and sometimes picking and choosing and directing the other guys on what was cool that they were doing and how, that's a good bit there. And I'm good at collating music and helping the flow of it rather than being in complete charge of it, So, because in the band in so many ways, I have nothing to do with the band personally. The business of the band, the business of hiring this truck that I'm sitting in talking to you. I have no idea how that was done. I don't know about how the gigs were booked. I don't know any of how to get a hotel, run a hotel rooms all at the same time, and But my bit is to sing, and so I learned my part. If you're asking me what have I learned, that's what I've learned. I've learned my part in things and to be that.
So what does a band give you then? Because being a solo artist, there's the creative vision, there's the writing, there's the, I want to play this place and that. There's that freedom. What does a band give you as an artist?
I think that basically that freedom that was there is not freedom, it's isolation. So the band gives me friends, it gives me community, it gives me the group, it gives me I'm part of a group, it gives me the chance to share, and it gives my music and my various passions, it gives them the chance to be shared and made better by the other people there. Musicians are they forever believe that some musicians who are very headstrong, like I used to be, just believe in their vision and can't let anybody in on it. But music is shared. Music is shared, and it should be, because whenever somebody else comes on and joins you in what you're doing, it's better than it was. And then a third person and a fourth person. And that's what I genuinely believe. I fight against myself all the time, as we all do. Musicians, because you get these strong ideas about things, but you have to be prepared to let it go and let it be better than you thought it was going to be. That's what the band does. The band makes things better than I.
Better than you can be alone. Does this sort of now exclude any chance of you in 10 years down the road going solo, or is there still a chance there, 5 years from now you go, you know what, I've got these songs that don't fit for the Temperance Movement, let me go do them by myself? Or you're like... No,
that's a difficult thing, because I think, to be honest with you, I kind of more or less given up on all that kind of stuff. I would love to be approached to do something on my own or whatever if I had time, if it be for some sort of purpose, essentially, I always think about the music I'm making, and I think, how will the band make this sound? And for the moment, it's what I've learned is that everything I tried outside of the temp didn't work, but the temp does work.
Yeah, so it works very well, by the way.
What's that?
And it works very well, by the way.
Thank you. So I don't tend to play around with that information. That's just a kind of fact. So I always think, well, I wouldn't want to fuck around with it. But if there was songs, I write a lot of stuff. But if it didn't fit, then it didn't fit. Whatever, I quite like to do other things, but at the minute I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, which is in this thing,
So let's talk about White Bear. The first album, you got into the studio, you set up, you plugged in, you played, you recorded, you got out, and that was the debut album. This one, you took a little more time, you went to different studios. If you can
I think that it was done probably in less time, but we had the sessions and the writing time that was spent and dedicated to it we had.
And that's where the line died. But fear not, I got Phil right back on the phone. Here he is once again from the Temperance Movement, Phil Campbell.
Just before we got cut off, we were talking about sort of the writing process and the in-studio.
White Bear.
Yeah, are you there?
Yes.
So let's go back to that. It was a little bit different than the first one. Just sort of explain how you put this one together.
Well, the first record was basically written by me and Luke and Paul sitting down at a table, and then the songs were written, and then we sort of played them out. The second album was written after a couple of years of touring, so the band had grown, the band had developed. I myself had developed a bit of a sort of on-stage character, and we took all of that stuff and made a second record with it. But we did it sporadically. We recorded our jams and sound check. The boys recorded on their own and things, and then sent them up to me in Glasgow, and then I would put some vocals on them, send it down, and other things we wrote like we had done the first one. So there was 3 different ways of writing, which made White Bear what it was. It was probably done in about over a period of 6 months, 8 months maybe, but just whenever we could do it in between touring.
So you mentioned touring in your answer. The band is on the road now, and you're calling me as you're traveling to the next gig. How important is the live show to a new band? Because it's not like the old days where record companies would put you on the road and throw a whole bunch of money on you and then recoup it later. You really sort of have to get out there and work it. Yes,
it is. You have to go out just exactly like you used to have to do. The internet has changed some things, but not everything. You have to tour. When you come to America, you have to tour America. However long that's going to take. It's helpful if you have a song that jumps on the radio because you maybe get a sync in a movie, or your song gets played on Grey's Anatomy or something. That helps. But otherwise, you've got to work it. And for a band like us, to an American audience, they're judged immediately as being American because I sound like an American, because I put on an American character and swagger, because they're my heroes. But so a lot of people have preconceptions about who we are. The live show is important because the live show gives us the chance to really show who we are and where the music's coming from. So that skeptics if they didn't like the music, they might like the band more after they see them. That's what happens to me when I see bands. I'll once I see them, if I like them and I see them live, I love the music on it, recorded music, more than I did before, even if I heard it before.
Do you consider yourself more of a live band or a studio album band?
No, we're a live band. We're probably going to try and become a bit of a studio band as well, and do that, because we do enjoy doing that. Over the last few years, all we've had the time to do really, and the money to do is tour. It's not open. It's not really open to us to become a studio band. We've not toured the world for 10 years and have earned that yet. We're not able to be a studio band yet. We were a band that are on the road. That is what we are. We take all these songs, these caged versions of the songs that you try and capture them early and put them onto the recordings, and then you do it and make it sound as good as you can. And then you go off and you really start playing them, and you get into them, and they become alive, and they change and develop each night, and they become part of the stage set. And that's what's important. It's important because also we've got a shuffle beat there, and then we've got 2 heavy groove songs there, and we've got fast one there and a slow one there, and whatever. And for me, it's just there's different albums, but it's all, for me, it's about the live show. How does the live set going to feel now that we've got 2 albums? It feels good.
Talk to me about the challenges of the North American market, making it big in Canada and the U.S., because the album has had a 6 months delay from its European release. How challenging is this market for a band like the Temperance Movement?
I can only tell you how challenging it is for us personally. We came here last year, and we started really, really well, right? And we it was like February, March, April, and May, I think we were here.
Right.
And all over America, like Midwest first, then down the East Coast, then South, and then across the South and up. We were with Blackberry Smoke, and we also did a lot of promotional things on our own. and it was great. It was great. We saw the winter, and then we get into spring, and then we were back in summer to do Telluride Festival in Colorado, and we made a good start. And then one of our guitar players left, right? Because he didn't want to be away on tour all the time. Because basically, the truth is that touring America means you need to fucking tour America. You need to be there, right? And if you're not there, everybody forgets about you. Now, I'm not talking about the fans. They don't forget about you. I'm talking about the people at the record companies, the people at the publishing companies, the people at the promoters, the agents, the guys that you need to stay excited so that they can meet each other and, have dinners and everybody can feel as if it's successful and they're in the record business and it's all a big party. As long as you're there, that can go on. But the minute that you leave America, everybody, forgets about that. And because they need to move on with whatever else is happening. I was told the Black Crowes are successful because they toured solidly for 20 months around America. I was told that Bruce Springsteen is successful because he toured solidly for 4 or 5 years between albums, just constantly. He didn't have time for a personal life. Now, that is fine for a band who are 19 years old, right? But for our band, we're a little bit older, and we've all got kids, and we've all got wives, and we've all got families, and we all got rent to pay. And it's a difficult proposition for us to be away to America all the time. One of our guys left because it wasn't working for him. It stopped us being able to come back to America when we wanted to, when we needed to. It delayed everything. Everything got delayed. But we got our shit together again, and we're all right, But it's been a bit of a delay in getting the thing out. It's been tremendously frustrating for us that the album wasn't out in America until not even fucking yet. It's like tomorrow or something. It's very, very frustrating because America is like one of our favourite places to play, and where the music sort of translates very, very easily. And the fact that there was a delay, this is all up in the higher echelons that I do not understand. But it's been frustrating. Yeah.
You mentioned, of course, Luke leaving. Was it disappointing for you because you built this movement going on? You had, okay.
It was devastating. Is what it was. I mean, I mean, personally, I didn't see that coming at all. But it was. The guy was a brilliant person to work with. Very, very, very good collaborator, and he was a sort of good motivator as long as he was into the thing, And I could see, and everybody could see that there came a point where it just wasn't working for him, and he wasn't enjoying it, and he was kind of doing other things, and he was honest, and we were all close enough to just sort of deal with that. There was no big fights. There was no lawsuits or divorces. It was just a kind of right. Okay, and the band changed. The band just had to change. We had to pick it up, and run with it, and take on somebody else and find somebody else, and then the band becomes a different type of band, a different family, a different group, a better band maybe than it was.
Were you at all? Or are you at all mad at Luke, though? Because you did have that energy going and that vibe going.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I mean, because essentially, I would be mad with them, and we would all be mad with them if he felt that he had to continue being in the group against his own sort of will to do whatever he wanted. Because he wanted to, have his family life, and he wanted to, I think he enjoyed producing acts and working with solo artists and being the kind of key figure. He likes being the sort of Ethan Johns type of figure in a thing, and that's what he wants. Okay. I want him to do that and be happy doing that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And basically the guys that were left, we were prepared. People told us the horror stories. We met Steve Gorman. He told us about touring. He told us the toll it's going to take in our lives. He says, watch out, something's going to, something always happens. You always come up against things you don't expect. Just, and whoever the guys that were left in the group, we kind of had to join a bit more closely together. And the thing just, I think we decided, well, he's jumping a ship on it, but we're not gonna. We're gonna stay, and so we kind of made our kind of proper declaration that we were going to, continue with the group, because we could have just given up. It was a bit shitty, but we had to go on.
Yeah, you had to go on, and I guess we'll end on this, because you mentioned that you are a bit of an older band in the sense that you're not 18 years old running around in a beaten up van trying to make it. How do you balance the wives and the family and the kids, and how do you balance that and sort of stay sane and stay focused on making the Temperance Movement sort of like the next big thing?
I think there's a little bit of madness involved. There's a little bit of a sort of gambler's mentality to it. You're taking everything that's really important in your life, and you're kind of, you're staking it on this thing working out. And, I mean, apart from the fact that you've got all those big, silly, ridiculous dreams of Van Halen type rock and roll success, Motley Crue, whatever, U2, whatever. I mean, these kind of things, don't really happen for bands anymore, but just the success of traveling and getting to see New Orleans. I want my wife to see New Orleans. I want my kids to come and see New Orleans. I want them to see New York City. I want to travel and not just be the guy that leaves home and says, or sends postcards back home. I want them to be involved in part of my life. And that's difficult, because we have to do family. When we leave our families, us in the band and our people back home, they have two different experiences. Yeah. We're out here, and everybody's telling us we're great, and we're eating the best food on the menu and at whatever restaurant we can find, and we're going to the gigs and we're playing shows, and we're laughing in the van and playing stupid games and enjoying the summer sunshine in Colorado or wherever we are. And, my wife's back home in the rain, stuck in the house with a 2-year-old. And the challenge is to be concerned and keep your heart and your head back home. Because I tell you right now, that's not the natural state of play, but it doesn't work otherwise. It just doesn't work. You need to kind of take everything you got as a gift and be thankful for it, but at the same time, really still keep your head and your heart on what's going on at home.
Yeah, and it's impossible to just bring them out on the road. I mean, yes, they can come out for a week or two, but to have family with you for a 6-month run is just not feasible. Nor is it fair to them, because it disturbs their life too, right? But
it doesn't work. I mean, you really just want to. What you're saying is, listen, I'm going to be doing this for the next few years. God knows how long. Maybe there'll come a time where we get to take a break, and in that time maybe we'll have the means to do a little bit of traveling ourselves because of the work that I'm doing just now. I mean, it's like you're kind of planning ahead all the time, but still trying to enjoy the journey of it, especially when we're back home. I am very much a home bird, and I like my cooking, and I like my family life, and I like my piano and my little sort of my little girl and my son, and this is my life, and I get to be both a rock star and a family man. I get both of these things.
And a dad. I mean, dad I think is number one rock star, right? I mean, that's more important, but at least to me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think the thing you learn with that is that, because nobody ever feels, I don't think any of us feel like a good dad. We always think that we're fucking it up, but then what you learn is that you get these responses from your kids that tell you that they think you're okay,
Yeah, you're doing
and then
okay.
That makes you feel better.
Now I know you do have to move on. I will finish with this. You opened up for the Rolling Stones, which you've spoken about many times. Obviously, very exciting. Is there one band right now that you would love to open for? I mean, I know Guns N' Roses is on the road. If they called you, would you be there? Is that who's the one band that you would want to really open for?
I don't know. I think I really like that band, Cage the Elephant. I think they were very cool. They were like one of the coolest bands that I've heard in a long time. they closed the Telluride Festival, and they really took me by storm. I'd never actually heard them before. I thought I'll just watch them, and we went on and we did a good show, but they were fucking great. The music was brilliant, and I think that it reminded me an awful lot of bands like REM, and they had. Plus, they were rock. They also reminded me of NXS. And, they had a lot of things going on for them, but that would be the ticket, I reckon. They're great.
Yeah, that sounds great. Phil, a great pleasure. I know we've had some phone issues, but we got through it, and there you go. Thank you so much.
Hey, man, no bother. Thanks a lot, man. And I'll hopefully meet you someday at a show. Come and say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to see you on the road. So next time you're in Montreal, please drop me a note, and I will absolutely be there. It's worth seeing.
Sure, man.
Thank you.
Sure. That's lovely. Thanks.
Cheers.
See you, man. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with Phil Campbell of the band Temperance Movement. The new album is White Bear, and before that we had Jon Anderson, former frontman for the band. Yes, he's in a new project, Anderson-Stolt, and their album is called Invention of Knowledge. Thank you to everyone who participated in this episode of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon. Thank you to the fans out there that are listening. If you want to check me out, head over to Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON, paypal.me/MITCHLAFON, and on Facebook, One-on-One Mitch Lafon. Cheers. Bye for now. Oh my.